There are teachers who fill the air with words, and there are a rare few who teach most powerfully by saying nothing at all. Ramana Maharshi belonged to the second kind. He lived in the south of India on the slopes of a quiet red mountain called Arunachala, and for more than half a century people came to him from every corner of the world. Some came with questions. Some came with sorrow. Many came simply because they had heard that, in his presence, the noise inside them grew still. He did not promise miracles. He did not ask anyone to change their religion or abandon their daily life. He offered something far simpler and far harder, a single honest question turned inward. To understand why his story still touches us, it helps to picture the time and the place. Ramana was born in 1879, in a region of South India where temples rose like mountains, and the rhythm of life moved with the seasons and the prayers. The 20th century was just beginning. The world was about to fill itself with engines, telegraphs, and hurry. And yet, far from all of that, a young man would stumble upon a discovery that needed no instrument and no library. He found it inside his own awareness, in the space where every person already lives but rarely looks. The heart of what he taught can be said in a few plain words. We spend our whole lives convinced that we are the small, anxious self we carry around, the one with a name, a history, a body that ages, a mind that worries. Ramana suggested that this self we cling to is not the deepest truth of us. Beneath the constant chatter of thought, he said, there is something quiet and unchanging that simply knows it exists. He called it the self with a capital letter to distinguish it from the ordinary ego. And he insisted that this self is not something to be reached after years of struggle in some distant place. It is here now, closer than breathing, hidden only because we never stop to notice it. What makes his story so unusual is that he did not arrive at this through long study or careful reasoning. There was no famous teacher who handed it to him, no scripture he labored over for decades before the truth dawned. It happened to him suddenly, when he was still a teenager, in a single overwhelming experience that we will come to in time. From that moment on, he lived as if the question of who he really was had been settled once and for all. Everything else, the comforts most of us chase and the fears most of us flee, simply lost its grip on him. He spent the rest of his days, quietly and without fuss, helping others find the same freedom within themselves. The way he pointed to it was almost startlingly direct. Instead of asking people to master complicated practices, he asked them to follow one question to its root. Who am I? Not as a riddle to be answered with words, but as a search, a turning of attention back toward the one who is asking. When a thought arises, he taught, ask to whom it has come. The answer is always the same to me. And then ask, gently and patiently, who is this me? Follow that thread inward, and the ordinary noise of the mind begins to loosen. This is what he called self-inquiry, the most direct path he knew, because it does not wander outward at all. It goes straight to the source. People sometimes expect a great sage to be remote and severe. Ramana was the opposite. He sat among visitors on a simple couch, often saying little, treating a poor villager and a famous scholar with exactly the same warmth. He cared for the animals around the ashram. He helped in the kitchen. He never claimed a special title or set himself above anyone. His authority came not from performance but from a kind of transparent stillness, as if the small personal self in him had quietly stepped aside, leaving only presence. Many who met him said that the most important thing he gave them was not a teaching they could write down, but a silence they could feel. That silence is the thread worth holding as we begin. In a life crowded with information and opinions, Ramana's message is almost shockingly economical. He did not add to the pile of things we must believe or do. He pointed instead to subtraction, to the dropping away of the false, until what remains is simply the awareness that was always there. His path speaks to people today precisely because it asks for no special gift, no exotic belief, no escape from ordinary life. It asks only for honesty and a willingness to look where we have never looked, at the very one who is looking. In the next chapter, we will go back to where it all began, to a small town called Tiruchuzzi and a perfectly ordinary boy named Venkataraman. We will see a childhood with no obvious sign of the sage to come, a normal family, a good memory, a famously deep sleep, and the early loss of a father. It is a quiet beginning, almost forgettable, and that is exactly what makes the turning point ahead so astonishing.